Welcome back, everybody. This is the Jewish Music Platform, and I'm Tuvia Kopstein. In this episode, Moshe Sherzan and I get to meet Marlon, aka Moshe Sobol. Moshe is an accomplished music therapist, and he is a composer, and he's a percussionist, and he's a drummer, and he is an improviser, and a musician of the highest caliber. And I first found out about Moshe through his posts on LinkedIn, where he was showing his music therapy sessions with schools and with healthcare settings, and it was captivating stuff. He takes his audience and he shows them the beauty of rhythm and music. Even though they're non-musicians, everybody gets into it. He goes to corporate events, he goes to executive retreats. Amazing, captivating stuff. Now, after I saw these types of posts, I found out that Moshe is also an accomplished musician, performer. We're going to play you a clip from a recent performance of the Moshe Sobol Band. The clip is about a minute and a half. You're going to want to hear a lot more than that, but we'll just include the link on the episode notes, and we're going to go straight from this clip into the actual meat of the interview. We know you're going to love this. Jewish Music Platform with Moshe Sobol. Moshe.
Tovin, how's it going, my friend? How are you?
It is great to be back for a second season of the Jewish Music Platform. And just in case you missed the whole first season and you're just jumping on the boat now, my name is Tuvia Kopstein.
And my name is Moshe Sherzan, and we are the Jewish Music Platform.
That's what we are, and we have to start. We're here with Moshe Sobol, who's waiting in the wings so patiently. And we want to get started in one moment, but just we have to say thank you to so many people for making this possible. You'll notice that we have a whole new setup. We're holding our own individual mics because the need was great and the need was pointed out to us. We gotta do something about the sound. And we also have this beautiful camera system set up in this beautiful studio, all courtesy of Rafael HaKohen Weintraub.
The big kahuna, as they call him.
Right, and he has done, in a totally volunteer, he has put out his services for the cause because he believes in the cause and he loves this kind of stuff as well. So a little lo lishma. And thank you, Rafael. I know he's going to hear this at some point later.
Yeah.
But now, without further ado, we are thrilled to be here with Moshe Sobol, coming at us from Muncie, New York. Is that correct?
I was going to say Berkeley, California. No joke. I was like, where else could he be other than Berkeley?
Now, why did you think he'd be in Berkeley?
Because he's so cool. Moshe, you agree?
They got cool in New York too, you know?
Yeah, we got so much to talk about.
Okay, so Moshe, we want to hear your story. We want to hear your music. Tell us, let's just start from the beginning. Tell us your musical journey. Tell us your Jewish journey. Tell us how they started to come together and what you're doing now.
Right. And a quick 20 seconds is that people who have not heard Moshe's music, might wonder, what do you mean his story? And the answer is, if you hear his music, there is a behind the music over here. And I'll stop. We're here for you, Moshe. We want to hear. But your music is so creative. I don't even know what to call it. Caribbean.
I just listened to it again, a little homework for the podcast, and the first it was the Cubanissimo. It was like this Cuban, like Latin jazz, and it was Jewish Latin jazz, and then the next track it was like when I was a kid, I went to Disneyland, and the big thing was Captain EO. It was the Michael Jackson. It was a roller coaster with a video, and it was like space music, and it was like it's glam rock and it's space music, and there's all kinds of weird, like it's something that the Jewish music world is not ready for, but they better get ready because it's here.
Yes, and we're getting ready for the second album. So
that's amazing. And again, Moshe, I'm sorry. So I know the music. Our listeners don't. So if the extra minute's gonna be okay. On March 24th, it was a Friday. I saw a status posted by Naomi Abigail,
Mm-hmm.
and she posted this clip. And I texted her. I said, "What is this? Please send this to me." And she sent it to me, and it was zoning in. Dun, dun, dun. And you do this thing over there. It's crazy. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. We're gonna put it in the show notes, and I listened to it no less than 50 times. I sent him up. I said, "This guy is just like, he's dancing on that thing." And okay, back to you.
Wow. So where do we start? So first of all, thank you so much for reaching out and having me here. And this is our element. We're here with Jesse here, and then we're in the music room. And as everybody can see, we got instruments, we got a vibraphone, we got congas, we got wood blocks, we got the marimba, we got all types of stuff that we work with when we're not out doing a combination of interactive drumming, programs for people out in the world, for private events. We're in healthcare, we're in schools, and then we're doing performances with so anyway, we got a smorgasbord of stuff I'm doing with music to make a parnasa out of it. And a lot of people, that's always a big question. How do you make a living, especially in the Jewish world, with paying private school tuition and kosher food and all this stuff? How do you do it? And it's one thing if you're a big star, that's getting paid, 10, 15, 20 grand to sing a Freilich set at a wedding. But what about for a functional musician that has worked his whole life on his craft, and so I think we could talk about that later on. But just to go back on your original question, I was born in Huntington Station. Well, I grew up in Huntington Station, Long Island, Suffolk County, and both of my parents my father was nifter in 2016, but he was a classical clarinet player, professional and producer and educator, music educator, and he his life was music and teaching people, inspiring people, and playing at a very high level. He exposed me to Richie Havens, who was the musician that opened up the Woodstock 1969 concert, the famous, really probably one of the most famous concerts ever in the history of the world, where close to 500,000 people were gathered to hear music, So he was a unique musician because he was a classical musician, went to Manhattan School of Music, got a master's, but he loved avant-garde jazz, Nina Simone, the folk guys,
Are we talking about your father, or are you talking about Richie Havens?
I'm talking about my father.
Got it.
Yeah. So anyway, so I used to go to Richie Haven concerts maybe from the womb, maybe twice a year, from 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, up till 12, 13, 14, 15. And then when I was 15, 14, when I was starting to really get into the conga drums, I got a chance to sit in to play with him at Heckscher Park in it was a big stage in Long Island, and it was like, whoa, I just played with, like, this guy was like this icon, but let's go back. My mother is a classical pianist, and she is a music educator in Long Island for what they call special learners. It was through the BOCES school system, so people that didn't really fit into the normal public school track. So they went to a program called BOCES, and she was a music teacher for that type of population. So she had a grand piano in the house, a Steinway, and my parents got divorced when I was 7. So my mom's house, there was the Steinway. Then my dad's house, he was teaching clarinet lessons, and I was into the drums. But I was getting harmony from my mom. I was getting melody from my dad. And I was into, deep-rooted rhythm from Africa. So I got the European thing. I got the African thing. And that's a little glimpse to what musically shaped me. So anyway, so when I took drum lessons as a kid, I went to public school. So we started in 4th grade with the drums. I always was in the bands. I started studying with a couple very well-known Long Island drum teachers. One was Charlie Perry, who was Mickey Hart's drum teacher, the drummer to the Grateful Dead. So there was a solid,
That's some yichus, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Mega yichus, yeah.
Yeah. In all seriousness, for sure.
That's Masorah,
Yeah, absolutely. And so after my first drum teacher was like a rock drummer, his name was Chuck Bonafonte. Then I started with Charlie Perry, who was a great big band jazz drummer. And then I started taking the Long Island Railroad from 9th grade on, maybe the end of 9th grade, 10th grade, to a place called the Drummers Collective that was on 6th Avenue and 14th Street. And the first lesson I went with my father, he took me in, and I was going through the list of amazing drummers that taught at this school. And the drummer I liked was this guy with like a colorful hat. He had like kind of like a big beanie type hat. And his name was Bobby Sanabria, and he taught Afro-Cuban rhythms on the drum set. And I was attracted to that because in 9th grade, there was a substitute teacher that substituted the symphonic band. His name was Izzy Mergen. And one class, he showed all of us, he went around the drum set and he said, this is an Arabic rhythm. This is a merengue rhythm. This is a samba rhythm from Brazil. This is, a salsa rhythm from from Havana, Cuba. This is like, and I was like, whoa, we just traveled the world through this knowledge of culture and rhythm. And this was in school. So I was like, I got to get away from the "We Will Rock You" American thing. And I was it was just so appealing,
It's funny, huh?
I think the "We Will Rock You" was actually originated from Great Britain, but we'll let it pass.
You'll let it pass,
Yeah. The simple beats, the simple American beats.
Yeah, exactly. So I started studying with Bobby Sanabria, and he blew me away. We were doing, rhythms on the left foot, another rhythm on the right foot, rhythm right, like polyrhythms galore. And he taught me about culture, and he said, this is the feel, this is the style of this culture, this is the context of the history where this came out of. And that was really appealing and important, actually, because a lot of times today I get, when I'm playing percussion, they're like, do you play real drums? And I'm like, what are you talking about? The American trap kit, which was a much later invention in the history of drumming. So I feel very grounded that I got that. And before we learned anything on the drum set, he would teach me the rhythms in its authentic origin. So this is the conga pattern. This is the timbale pattern. This, originated from these cigar boxes. On these slave ships, people got hammered out these 2 wooden sticks that developed into claves. And the list went on. And I was just like, whoa, rich history. So from 15 to 17, I was immersed in this. And I told my mother, I was like, Mom, I gotta go to Africa. This is like the motherland. This is all our rhythm in America came from this area, and in particular West Africa. So she said, she speaks in a Long Island accent. She's like, Marlon, I'd love to send you to West Africa, but I sound like a Southern person. But anyway,
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Marlon, you sound like.
That's better. You can't keep on going. Maybe I should
tell me what to say and I'll say it.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so she sent me to South Africa on this.
A little more Jewish. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't aware about the Jewish community in South Africa at the time, and it was this organization called the People to People Student Ambassador Program, and it was a 3-week student exchange, and we stayed with the Dutch, the Boers, the British, the Zulus, the Kosi, the Zandu. I learned how to click and say a name, and almost like people went for different reasons, but I went for the music, and I got, I would say, so much music.
How do you say Marlon in Zulu?
So I don't know how to say Marlon in Zulu, but it would be like Marlon. It would probably be like the L was like a click.
That's what you were thinking, right?
Marlon.
Okay, good. Okay, got it. Okay, continue, please.
So, so on that trip, I got to play with people, experience their music, and it was fascinating because I found that the drummers also danced, and the dancers also drummed, and the singers
At the same time? No.
No, I mean not so much at the same time, but they would like sort of do these round robins where everybody had skin in the game and like everybody was familiar with it. It wasn't like the American compartmentalized version where if you're a flautist, that's what you are. You choose that instrument, you stay in that lane, you know? Or if you're a percussionist, you don't, you know, it was, you know, and I went through this compartmentalized music education of that was the system that existed, and it just broadened my scope of the type of musician that I was really wanted to be, and I wanted it to be organic, and I wanted to be expressive, and I saw that like an unlimited, or at least a not societal imposed limitation or internal imposed limitation of what a musician should do or can do, or and I saw the drummers play marimba, the marimba players sing, the singers dance. Everybody was, and there was
it's really a musical schmorg, really.
Yeah, and there was joy. There was joy, and they didn't have a lot. They didn't have a lot of material possessions. So that was another thing that sort of planted these seeds.
I have a question. Before you go on. What I wanted to touch upon in this discussion is that I was so impressed when I saw your stuff first, and I told this to you on the phone before, that I'm so impressed that you have this ability to interact and make it that the audience is really the musicians and the musicians the audience, and it's a blend. And yes, you're teaching and you're instructing, but you're really giving. It's 100% full of participation, and that is such a foreign thing for you and I guess before your African experience, but that I a trained musician, and the whole thing of going to music school or becoming a star, becoming an artist, is that you have the skills, and everyone sits in the audience and they watch you with the skills, wow them with your skills, and your thing is like, no, we're all together in this. And did you get that from that? Did you pick that up from that trip, you think?
So you touched on that. That's something that always bothered me. This sort of barrier between the audience the stage audience relationship. And one of the seeds, but before I got involved with Yiddishkeit, was that I felt like the way I connected to Avodah Zarah, idol worship, was basically worshiping people and worshiping artists and musicians. And the more I got to know some incredibly talented people, and when you thought that they really had it all and everybody was trying to play like this person or aspire, deep down there was a lot of inner turmoil and hardship, and I found that the artist, the superficial artist face on stage and in the public didn't necessarily match up with the common folk, thing. And what that meant is that the audience was actually promoting the demise of the artist, and the artist was promoting the disconnect between the audience of like, you're so far away from where I am. Meanwhile, they just want to get in touch with the simple joy again of life, and they want to aspire to be something great, So it's like once you kind of dissect that, I think you could tune into something that's a little more real and authentic that we're all trying to go for, you know?
I never even thought of that aspect of it. Which is the star aspect of there were so many stars, music stars, and actors, and anybody who's on the stage, right? That they are so broken inside.
Oh, you taught that, yeah.
And
100%.
we've seen over the course of history, you know, that the troubled artists that that end up destroying themselves and never connected that.
The greats, so many of the greats.
The greats, yeah. The real artists who were making like very interesting innovations. We don't have to say names. You guys know who all these people are. Some of them are not people that we want to emulate. Most of them, but I never really put that two together. That it's that divide between the audience and the performer being like there's a barrier, having a barrier between them and the audience. And like I'm somebody that you look up to and that you idolize and adulate, and that makes that's not human. That takes away the humanity of the person on the stage.
Yeah, and then like the classic thing you hear, like, I can't believe, you know, they this tragedy happened to them. They always looked like they had it all. Well, like, I mean, like, really, like, you know, like that's your perception, you know, that they had it all. Like, come on stage, see what they're. Anyway, whatever. So in college, so I got to the Mannes College of Jazz by the New School, and it was a fantastic school, but highly competitive. And there was one in particular event that happened there that a little bit steered me towards a health promoting direction that I wanted to take with my music. And there was this wonderful performer that I think overdosed. He was one of the classmates, and it was just like people like, I don't know what happened. I'm sure there's mental illness. I'm sure there's depression. But I remember he was at school one day. We jammed one day, and the next day he wasn't there. So I, in probably my sophomore year there, I started to lose touch with that thing I saw in Africa that was so inspiring, and what I wanted to attribute to. I guess the conservatory environment really definitely was one extreme, you know, and you start kind of getting lost in the forests and getting much more detached from the way common people, when I say common people, just people living their life, experiencing music, are thinking, because you get into the musician head, the conservatory musician head. So I started to kind of lose the vitality and love for music, which is surprising now because thank God I'm very much in it. You know, I feel very inside the life force of my life and the music that my life portrays. And when I'm in the music itself. So I'm in the conservatory practicing 5 hours a day in these practice rooms, and I started experiencing my own anxiety and performance anxiety, and just like it just spiraled, and I just wasn't happy. So and when you lose, when like playing music is like your passion, not only that, you like identified as the musician, as an inspiring musician. I remember at a gig and I met like Eddie Palmieri's this, I don't know if you know who he is, one of these great Latin pianists, like his manager or colleague. And he was just like, if I could get you to play drums with Eddie Palmieri, would you be ready to do that? And like even that at that point, it like was just anxiety provoking. I couldn't, you know, tune into that original track that the conservatory wanted to send you to be. So anyway, there was a teacher, Dr. Luis Montello, that had a creative arts therapy program at the New School. And I enrolled in this music therapy 101, this basics to intro to music therapy class. And the first thing she said was teach us how to breathe from our diaphragm and just do diaphragmatic breathing. And like where the belly go, you breathe in, the belly goes out, you breathe out, the belly goes in, and like you get the good oxygen to the blood. Exactly. I couldn't even do it. I was just like all dysregulated from being so anxious. So I realized where I was really holding, and
Yeah, Moshe, you have to know you just relaxed us very much by even mentioning the breathing.
I know. Can we have a quick 1-minute tutorial on that? Is that okay?
You want to show us how to breathe from the diaphragm?
Yeah,
Right
so-
here?
And then do we breathe through the nose or out through the mouth? I'll let you. But I love breathing. I do it all the time. Yeah.
So breathe in through the nose and push the belly out. So 2, 3. Breathe out through the mouth and the belly goes in. Do it 2 more times. Breathe in, belly out, and breathe out, belly in.
I want all the listeners to participate here, but otherwise you're going to have to skip over this. Okay.
So out through the mouth. There's no
it's
ujjayi going on here.
It's like, but so anyway, I got involved with this program, and I ended up doing a senior thesis after 2 years of that on mental illness and jazz musicians. And I focused on 3 amazing musicians. One was Buddy Bolden, who was like Louis Armstrong's predecessor, one of the first improvising musicians out of New Orleans. He
was a trumpeter?
Trumpeter, yes.
Oh, okay.
Look him up. He was named King Bolden, Buddy Bolden. Actually just had a movie that Wynton Marsalis did the music for. There's some pretty provocative scenes. I wouldn't recommend it to the audience, but it was about his life, Buddy Bolden. And Buddy Bolden taught King Oliver, and King Oliver taught Louis Armstrong, if I'm not mistaken. So
Moshe Kimball told me, see how I loved Mr. Buddy, Mr. Louis.
It was one king to another.
Yeah.
You know, okay.
So the Masora, I think the closest thing to, we're going to get into this, and the flow of the Gemara and the associative thinking, I think there's a lot of parallels in an improvising soloists and interacting with each other. We could talk about that later. So I did this senior thesis on Buddy Bolden, Bud Powell, and Jaco Pastorius. And the thesis basically was, if these musicians and artists got the help they needed, their life wouldn't have ended the way it did. And I was just like, I'm drawn to if I'm going to make music, I'm not going to do it at my own destruction, at the destruction of other people. So this just got me on the path. In the summer of 2002, I did an internship at Beth Abraham, which was a nursing and subacute rehab facility in the Bronx. And it was a facility where Dr. Oliver Sacks, the famous neurologist,
the man who took his wife for
a hat.
Yeah.
Moshe, you're on it, man.
That drummer. Yeah. Tourette's.
So,
I'm sorry. If I don't know what you're talking about, there have to be some people out there that don't know what you're talking about. Can you fill me in a little bit?
Wow. I'll let Moshe do it.
So Dr. Oliver Sacks was a famous neurologist that the movie The Awakenings with Robin Williams and Robert De Niro was portraying this population of patients that had a diagnosis of encephalitis lethargica. So a mouthful. Basically, it's a sleeping disorder where they were in these comatose states for over 20 years. In the 1960s, they started to see, with a combination of L-Dopa, which was illegal at the time, but Dr. Sacks was able to get it, and music, these people came out of these comatose states and literally had Techias and Mason. And the movie was called The Awakenings. And it was about this 6-month period where these people came alive after being, dead.
Wow, that's heavy stuff.
And this L-Dopa, this is a psychedelic?
Like dope? Is that what it is?
Dopamine, L-Dopa. I don't think it's a psychedelic. It's dopamine, like
just in
yeah, it's Parkinson's. It's for a neurologic. But it's called dopamine, but it's called L-Dopa, and it wasn't legal. The FDA didn't approve it in the country in the 1960s. But it wore off after 6 months, and these people, went back into their states, but they had this 6-month period of like living life to the fullest. Like these people knew how to live, and it was so powerful. So that was the location of where this work actually took place. So in the walls of this place, Beth Abraham, there was magic. There was there was chidushim. There was like the idea of everybody says you're down and out. There is no chance for you. We're the people that bring it to life, and you felt it in the walls at this time. This was in 2002 to, it was still coming out of that era. So I got a chance to work with this gentleman that was a victim of an assault, and he had double arm amputations, and he wanted me. He had a musical background, so I was interning. I was an intern. I was working with David Ramsey and Benedict Skyby. They were two very senior music therapists, and I asked Benedicta, can I work with this guy? He was 32 years old. I was 22 years old. I felt that I could. He was from Brooklyn. I felt like I could connect musically with him. So she said, sure. I didn't have any experience doing music therapy. I was just sort of at a 2-year little certificate, and this was my first real life, opportunity to work with him. So he brought 3 issues to the session. Number 1, how do I deal with my self-image? This was before his prosthetic arms. People looking at him, staring at him. How do I deal with that? Number 2, when I have an itch on my neck and I can't scratch it, I'm dependent on my caregiver to scratch it for me. And when they're not available, I'm lashing out at them and I'm getting irritated and angry. So how do I save my relationships with my caregiver?
Wow, that's
heavy stuff.
Yeah, heavy stuff.
Can we take a moment? Can we take a moment to thank Hashem for our
thank Hashem for our arms. Yeah,
okay.
No joke.
Absolutely, no, it's no joke, and that's a really important point because as a 22-year-old who was playing in clubs, I mean, up until now, I was playing at Windows of the World, the Supper Club, Swing 46. I was playing at bars and clubs in Manhattan, and here I am now making music with a person that's real. That's not there to escape reality and slug a couple drinks down and dance, which I'm not knocking that. There's a time and place for entertainment and to escape. But this was real. How do I use music to actually work on these 3 issues? And let me get to the third issue. And the third issue was like, why did God make me survive this attack? What does he want from me? And how am I supposed to think about life, and all stuff? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. And when he said God, I felt God. I didn't feel some like watered down thing that I felt the word God meant in my past. But I felt like this guy actually had some sort of relationship. He was an African-American man. He was like, grew up in the Baptist faith. But when he said God, I felt that he meant a higher power that he had a active relationship with, and he really wanted to know, and he was struggling with it. So here I am, this 22-year-old, nook, and I'm dealing with these 3 issues, and we made music. So we did songwriting together. We did lyric analysis together. We ended the summer with a recording project, and we made music centering around these 3 issues. And it had such a deep, deep impact on my life that I started searching. I started searching for spirituality, and this guy really set me on that path.
Wow.
And I didn't land.
Did he have a musical background from the Baptist? I don't know exactly what's going on over there.
Yes. I was his only whatever training. Now you have to understand the Baptist faith has a very interactive service. They're not sitting like other branches of other.
Can I get an amen? That's the one.
That's you're that exactly.
Hello, baby.
And it's audience participation, and not only that, there's a strong tradition of like Old Testament music, so they'll sing about Moses, they'll sing about Joshua, and as opposed to
let my people go. They'll sing.
Do you know what
Israel was in Egypt land?
Let my people go.
Can I get an amen?
Do you know what a stop and shout is? Stop and shout.
A stop and shout. I don't know the terminology.
I'm doing 30 seconds for me. Is that okay? I showed up today.
I've been talking way too much. Yeah.
My grandfather was an art collector. He had a beautiful picture from Romar Bearden, was an artist of Robert Johnson, and that art was used on a cover of a record. Then later on, went on a tape. And there was this thing on there called a stop and shout. It was like this. Stop and shout. Hey, you gotta move. Ooh, you gotta move. Ooh, you gotta move. You gotta move. You gotta move. And when the Lord gets ready, you gotta move. And then it got laid with it. You gotta move. You gotta move. You gotta. It was just so beautiful. Stop and shout.
That's amazing.
Participation.
That was awesome. That was a great execution of it.
Yeah,
Also,
thank you. The Stones covered it later. Anyway, back to Chavez. Back to you.
Right. So, after that summer, I called Dr. Tomeno, who ran the music therapy department at Beth Abraham. I said, "Can I continue to intern? Because I love the work I'm doing. I'd like to just do more of it, gain more experience, and be in that setting." She's like, well, we have this site in White Plains, Westchester, that's looking for like a music specialist to work in their activities department at a nursing rehab. So I said, great. I'm like, I'll apply for that job. So I started working there in White Plains, Westchester, and I didn't know repertoire. I didn't know how to sing, and I didn't know how to I didn't know how to sing and facilitate group experiences. I didn't know how to play piano and facilitate. What I could do is play the djembe drum, and so I went to this job like needing to learn how to be a music therapist, and I wasn't even certified at the time. But within those years, those first couple years, I had no choice. So I started using my voice. I started learning repertoire from the people that I was dealing with. I'd say, what song, what was that? And I'd learn from them. So I started to gain these skills, not from a Jamie Aebersold book or from some sort of music technique book, but I learned the music from people. So it is a Masora. It was like, because when you have an 85-year-old woman or man that Lindy hopped and did the jitterbug in the Palladium Ballroom, or back in the day, and that person is teaching you an Oscar Hammerstein song or Irving Berlin song, it's very different. There's a tzimtzum. There's a tremendous contraction when you have generations later someone saying, check out this standard, but how did they receive it? They received it from this record, and then that was transcribed by someone, and then they're learning the notes, and they never were connected with the actual living, beating heartbeat of that era.
So the Torah Shabbat of the music.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Again, with all seriousness.
Soul, which in other words, you could say the soul.
The soul.
The soul of the music.
It's not going on YouTube and watching a tutorial. Jitterbug in 5 minutes. Yeah.
Correct. And that's great, but there's a tzimtzum. There's a contracted energy to that, Whereas when I learned this era of music, which is really the American jazz standard repertoire, I was learning from, living, breathing people that lived through this era, and they're giving it over as a common person experiencing that music almost like a folk song. So it decomplicated, if that's even a word, it decomplicated the whole institutionalized approach to the jazz and American standard repertoire, where I was kind of learning it from like the beginning was maybe like Coltrane or something, this was a standard Coltrane played. No, this song existed way before that and was sung, and everybody approached it. It wasn't for a select few, for a select genius, for a select prodigy, for a select virtuoso. And that contracted energy and that mindset that I was experiencing in college contributed to the anxiety, because it was like, how are you going to get there if you're saying the source of it was from some untouchable genius? So it sort of broke that barrier, and I started learning music again from a pure place, from people, and it made it approachable, and it brought joy to this era of music again, and it gave me a yesod to work from and a strong foundation. And I almost like learned music again, bal peh, from people, and I like, on the most simple version, I'm like, how do I support this new melody that I learned from this person? And I started with, easy chords, and slowly built up, and then took some of the knowledge I gained in conservatory and put it on if it didn't get in the way. And this approach took the barrier of music away and allowed me to connect to people. And and taught me music as it represented people's emotions and relationship to the music. At that same time, I was wheeling the Jewish residents every Erev Shabbos to this service, this Jewish service that happened at 3 o'clock every Friday at the nursing home. And I was around some Jews and some Holocaust survivors and some elderly, and I'd wheel them to the service. And I was sitting at this service run by this guy Sam, who was affiliated with a conservative synagogue.
It sounds like a little shtickle happy hour over there. I'm not familiar with a 3 o'clock.
Shalom bimrom of cha cha cha.
Not familiar with that 3 o'clock Friday afternoon service, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. Right. Well, so it's funny. So that tune I knew. Now I had a bar mitzvah in the Reform synagogue, and from 13 years old to 23 years old, I didn't step foot in a synagogue. So I was quite detached from any organized formal practice of Judaism. But my mother always got a challah bread and lit candles on Friday, at some point on Friday. And that was like our one thing. We weren't eating kosher food or anything like that.
So beautiful, no? Isn't it? It's amazing. I think it's amazing. I'm always inspired to hear about how people who have their own little way they connected. It could be, we don't know what they were eating during the meal, but there was challah and there were candles. It's so beautiful,
Something they hang out.
Yeah,
Peter Himmelman said the same thing. If you remember, he said his mother, they weren't keeping kosher, they weren't keeping Shabbat, but his mother would always light candles, and he noticed that all of his friends whose mothers did the same stayed strongly connected. At whatever level they're on, whatever observance they have, they stayed strongly connected to their people, to the Jewish people.
So beautiful.
And the ones that didn't.
Yeah.
So let's praise those Jewish mothers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in the service with Sam officiating the, and it was kind of like I could tell this wasn't for me, that approach, but something happened where I'm like, I know Osei Shalom, I know Shema, but I didn't know L'Chadodi. L'Chadodi I didn't know. And he would sing this L'Chadodi song. I'm like, I don't know that. So I was like, something? I don't necessarily know so much about Judaism. And before I, explore the religions of all the things I seem to be inspired by way out all over the world, maybe I could check out Judaism. So my senior year of of college, Matt Miller, Matisyahu, and Daniel Zamir, a great Israeli saxophone player who I went to new school with, and they were starting to get into Yiddishkeit in 2001, 2, and they started calling me my senior year, like, hey, Marlon, Montes would say, you want to come with me to the Carlebach Shul on the Upper West Side? You're going to love it. The music, it's engaging. And I always had a gig Friday night. I was like, nah, no thanks, And then Danny Zamir would call me up and he'd be like, hey, you want to come over to my house for Shabbos? And, and I'm like, what? I was like, are you tripping out on acid? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you, my grandma? Like, you're going to cook me chicken soup and matzo balls and stuff?
He's tripping out on Hasid.
And both of these guys, like, overnight, like one day I saw them wearing one thing, the next day they're wearing the whole garb, and so I thought they were literally on an acid trip or like doing something like kind of unhealthy. So I sort of stayed away from them the senior year, but the year later I worked in White Plains and I started to get interested. So I was like, hi, I wonder if Matisyahu was still, if Matt Miller, I didn't know his Hebrew name was Matisyahu at that time. I was like, I wonder if Matt's still involved with Judaism. Let me give him a call, because I was friends with him and I knew he was from White Plains. So I was working 5 minutes from where he grew up. So I looked up his number in like the yellow pages, white pages, whatever it was. This is before cell phones, or at least before I had one, 2002.
Yeah,
and
they're starting to break out. In Israel, everyone had one already, but in America, it wasn't.
We were still on the beepers
so,
and pagers,
right,
for the cool people.
Yeah. So he, so I called Rochelle, his mother, and I was like, hey, is Matt around? And she's like, no, he's living in Crown Heights. I'm like, no way. I was like, is he like still into Judaism? She's like, oh yeah, he's deep into that. I was like, do you think I could call him and spend a Shabbat with him? And she's like, what? Are you kidding me? He would love it. So I get his number. I call him. He was studying at Hadar Torah Yeshiva. And I was like, hey, Matt, remember you invited me to the Karbach Shul back in college? I was like, I'm interested. I want to check out a Shabbat. But I was like, but I'll only come under one condition, that you don't water anything down for me. I want to experience it at the most hardcore level. He said, no problem. So this is 2003. I meet him in Crown Heights, and I meet him. I get off the subway on Eastern Parkway and Kingston, and he says, come with me. So we go. He takes me to Union Mikvah. And this is the mikvah right outside of 770, the free mikvah that you don't pay even $1 for. And it was gross. It was known to be like the grossest mikvah. Anyway, he doesn't tell me what a mikvah is, what we're doing, but he knows.
You said you wanted the full experience. He listened to what you said.
Yeah, so we open the door, and all of a sudden I see these like naked Hasidim, and like, I'm like, yo, dude, what are you getting me into, But I knew I kind of it was funny, So I spent the Shabbat there for the first time, and we were just like singing and dancing around the bima, and it was just like what I was looking for, the engagement part of the Judaism, like being fully immersed and engaged and singing at the top of your lungs and dancing and clapping. And I was like, oh, Judaism has this to offer. I thought I needed to go to Africa to have some sort of engagement. And there's something like this. And not only that, like this is real. Like you immerse for 25 hours, like this is a real experience. So it was such an amazing experience. And I said, I wanted to do Shabbos, and took a couple weeks after that. But then I started, I met a shliach in Westchester, and I spent like every Shabbos with them for the next 2 years, and learned Aleph Beis again, and watched him and his wife do their family and do Shalom Bayis, and have respect. And I came from a broken home. My parents were divorced. I didn't see very successful marriages growing up. A lot of my friends' families were divorced, and
it's such to chime in. That's such a powerful experience, and I totally relate. Similar experience, and getting involved with coming to Shabbos, coming for Shabbos to families where there was peace and serenity and shalom bayis between the mother and father and more or less between the kids, was kids are kids, but that was a very powerful experience. So we're brothers in so many ways, Moshe.
I love also the dancing around Shabbos. In my shul, it's a little quiet. Like I dance in the back. People look at me like, "What is this guy doing dancing during Lechadodi?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna dance during Lechadodi." Be a Kautal Litvak standing there.
No, nobody can stop.
You gotta jump around. Gotta jump around from Shlomo Alkabatz. That's what it's for.
Jump up, and get down, right?
All right. Do you consider yourself Chabad today, Lubavitch, or Hasidish, or Yiddish, Jewish? What do you? Yeah.
Right. So like I've always had a hard time with the box, because like there are a lot. I wear a kapata on Shabbos, I'm totally given over to the aspect of simcha and Ivdu Hashem b'simcha and ufaratzta and being a shliach wherever you go and you're b'taktoinim and like these core, like all these concepts I deeply resonate with. Is the whole package that perfect Lubavitcher package? I would say no, it's not. And but I find myself thriving in very diverse groups of since I don't thrive with a homogenous setting where everybody kind of thinks the same way. So where I live in Spring Valley, I have New Square right across from me. I have a more Litvish shul with guys I'm very close with. There's a Hasidic shtipel that 1 to 2 times a month I tap in there. During the week, I could go to Tzemek Tzedek here with Lubavitch, and I'm going to spend Shavuos back with the Shliach in Westchester. But I daven out at Nusach Tehillas Hashem. I say Meshiche when I'm not in the Litvish minyan. So yeah, I do and I don't.
For sure, there's my father, blessed memory, used to use the term Chavakuk. He would say these the Chavakuk Yidden, which stands for Chabad Breslov Karlbach Cook. I'm Chavakuk. Yeah. My heart is Chabakuk.
You know, it's interesting. Like there's like a lot of yekis in the shul that I go to, and you would think someone like me, like you said, the first perception I see you in Berkeley, California, like you think I should go to Pomona to the Karbach Minyan, but the truth is I feel very grounded around with the accountants and the yekis that are holding it down, because when someone holds it down, it allows you to be to float a little bit and to be up there. But if everybody's up there, there's no foundation, and it's just like an improvising musician. If you're going to take a solo and the rest of the band isn't holding the rhythm solid or isn't playing the chord changes in a predictable structure, you don't feel that you could improvise. You don't feel like you're being coddled. You don't feel like that support is there for you to express yourself.
You can't go. You can't fly if you don't have the foundation.
That's a tweet. Let's tell
that's beautiful, yeah.
Jackson in the office to make that a tweet. Okay.
Jackson.
There's no Jackson. Willie, Sam.
So there's a lot of parallels, I think, in spirituality and music, and that's why the Vilna Gaon said that if there wasn't Torah, he would be studying music all day long, because it's the language of the angels, and this is, you know, it is whatever. So it's like there's so many parallels between. But anyway, like, you know, it's just like not every yid can walk into Pardes and come out grounded. You know, not every artist can immerse himself and be an artist and be in the world and be health promoting and have a healthy life. And that's the art. You have to be conscious that I want to make decisions that are healthy. I want to make decisions that are good for my family. I want to make decisions that are spiritually sound. You know, so it really takes effort to want that as a musician, to say, I'm not going to take every gig in any bar.
So Moshe, tell us what was the next step? So you found with your Shabbos with Matisyahu that you found like a way that where music and Judaism were coming together, and you could express that joy. Where did you take it from there? Maybe the quicker version, because we could go on to it could be a long podcast. This is so fascinating.
Forever, yeah.
Right. So yeah. So basically, I started. So I was always working at this music therapy job in White Plains. This was my stable thing, and I was also playing with Matisyahu at the time. So I was on his first album, Rise, Shake Off the Dust, and we played all those New York big gigs that got him to the next place very quickly. So like at Joe's Pub, where Carson Daly was in the audience, and the next week we were on the Carson Daly show. So I was played that with him, and then within that time, at the time that he did live at Stubbs, I was just like, should I continue to play with him, or should I go to yeshiva and just, because at this point I was like 2 years religious, and I didn't have any formal learning experience. So I went to Maya Note for about 4 or 5 months.
By the Shook, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you got it. And and I got a chance to learn what it was to be a bucker and a full-time learner. And I realized that I've never really sat with a book open reading for more than a certain amount of time. So to be in that without any experiential movement and like it was very challenging for me. So I lasted like almost 5 months there, and then I came back and I got my music therapy job again, and I took a couple steps back religiously, and then just kind of stabilized myself. And then I started dating, and I met my wife in Crown Heights in 2006-07, and then we got married, and we moved to Dobbs Ferry, Westchester, and we lived the first 7 years and built our family in Westchester with the shliach that I was close to, Rabbi Silverman. And we had our 4 children, Kanai Nahara, there. And then we moved to Muncie in 2014. And we've been here since.
Beautiful.
So and you've been doing the music therapy. You got yourself as a degree in music therapy, and the whole time. Yeah. When did the music therapy sort of morph into what I've seen you promoting, like going into office retreats and coming to schools and teaching? Yeah. What are you doing now?
Right. Okay. So basically, the music therapy work really set the seeds of the work I'm doing now, because I was doing 4 programs a day, 4 group programs a day, and one-to-one visits and one-to-one sessions of just making music with non-musicians, like they weren't formal musicians. And, so I spent my 5 days a week. I did a group centered around Spanish people. I did a group, music improvisation group. We did a drumming group. We did a tone bar group. So I was like learning the art of making music with the non-musician, and how do you connect? How do you do that with them? There's an art to it. How do you simplify things and set them up for success? So that sort of morphed into, doing like the drum circle thing, the interactive drumming at like, maybe like a Chabad house, or someone asked me to do it, or at a Hebrew school. And I was like, so I just transferred over that facilitation to that, and slowly started learning the repertoire necessary for that. And at the same time, I had after the Matashahu thing, I had my own band called Shem's Disciples, where we did this hip hop reggae thing. Then after that was, you can look that up, it's on Spotify. Then I was in Zion 80, this band with John Madoff and Greg Wall and Shania Blumenkrantz, and we did like this Fela Kuti Afrobeat Karl Bach thing. So I was in that band. We traveled, we toured Europe and went to Bosnia and Italy, and did some
also available on Spotify.
That's all there, Zion 80. So it's all on my website. If you go to MosheSobol.com, I like, if you go to the About section, I bring you through the whole journey, and you'll hear some music with Shem's Disciples, then Zion 80, and then Moshe Sobol Band. So I always was doing, while I was doing the music therapy thing, I was always had my foot in the performance door, because my father always said, like, I don't know if it's my Jewish grandmother taught him this. He's like, you get your stable job, but you keep your foot as an active performer. Like, he always pushed that, and it was wonderful advice, because I never became like irrelevant, or like, I was always kind of in it. And for the performance world, they knew me as a performer. For the therapy world, they knew me, social workers and nurses and LPNs and RNs and CNAs, like, knew me just doing music there. And like, it was funny, because when I was dating my wife, I was playing with Matashahu pretty regularly, but I didn't mention it because he was so big at that time that I didn't want it to have an ulterior motive to want to get close to me. Not whatever. But so I kept that from her, and I said, I'm a music therapist. I work in a nursing home, music therapist, And then after we got engaged, I was like, oh, I have a gig tonight. You want to come? And I'm like, I'm playing with Matashahu. They're playing with who? Like, he was like the biggest thing at that point, Yeah. So
what did you play? What instrument did you play?
Percussion with him, because his band was the new school guys, like all the guys I went to college with. So Jonah David was on drum set, Aaron Dugan guitar, Josh Warner bass, and that was the core. So I was playing percussion. So anyway, so it sort of just naturally evolved to doing the interactive drumming thing, to now contracting with healthcare facilities and leading my own bands at this point. And Baruch Hashem, I've been learning. I'm in this Oraisa program, so I'm learning Gemara every single day. I have a Tanya Chavrusa, and the music now that I'm putting out to the world is so firmly rooted in Torah learning and Yiddishkeit that like, for me, when I listen to the Shem's Disciples era, I'm like, I related more to the secular world at that point, and the Jewish life was more foreign to me. And now, living in Muncie 8 years, I'm davening 3 times a day, Baruch Hashem, with a minyan. I'm with Skver, I'm with Vishnitz, I'm with Papa, I'm with real yeshivish guys, I'm with Lubavitchers, I'm with chilled. Like, it's like I'm breathing a different air right now, and I'm in the schools, and so the music's really conveying that atmosphere that I'm in, and I feel very strongly that, I played the Gula Vision album to Skver Hasidim, and they're flipping out on it. Like, I go into Skver now, I'm a celebrity. They're like, they call me the Poiker, the percussion, the Poiker.
The Poiker, yeah.
Yeah, the Poiker, yeah, exactly. And they call me Moshe Neviecha. They're like, Moshe Neviecha is here. I'm like, no.
Come Navi on. I can't sing.
It's such good stuff. So the newest stuff. You said you're working on another album now, but Moshe Neviecha, so many different influences, and we now know your story and how it came together. Do you have any? You want to share anything about the meaning of what you try to accomplish, what you hope to accomplish with that EP? Those like 5 or 6 tracks. Like, was there a certain overriding theme?
Yes. So I was working at this assisted living up until 2021, and my wife I came home from work one day and my wife's like, "What's your Geula vision?" I was like, "What?" And I'm like, I never thought of it. And I was just like, I know what Geula is. I know that you're supposed to want Geula. I know you're supposed to want Mashiach. I know you're supposed to, But so she's like, all right, if money wasn't an issue and you could literally be doing what your dreams are taking you to do, what would that look like? What
It's
is
your
your
personal Geula.
Say it again?
A personal Geula, not like Mashiach Geula.
Well, kind of. It's connected. We'll get to it. So it's like, what's your most expansive, your expression of the most unlimited, expansive self? Like, what is you that there was a Yetziat Mitzrayim on such a level where you've left the constraints of your self-imposed narrow stuff and just gone into this expansive place where you don't limit yourself and you don't let society limit you on what you can do, what you can't do, what you're capable of doing, what you're capable of dreaming, what you're capable of implementing, and there was so many boxes and so many limitations that I still deal with, but that I was holding myself back from. So she said, "What's your Geula vision?" I was like, "Let's talk more." And so I said, this is what it would look like. I would run my non-for-profit. I would do only the things that I feel most passionate about. I wouldn't put myself into these things where I was compromising this. I said, I'll just deal with this because I get to do this a little bit, or like to think that, I really made it. I'm this musician that has a job. I'm paying my bills barely. I'm like, I made it as a musician. Like, what is this? What is this? It's bigger than this, So she got it from there's a woman, Zachariah and Ani Lipitz, who live in Pomona, and they're very big into this Geula vision, um, really living it, really in the Tachton, in this world, like really reframing, really everything that, and it really resonated. I mean, I heard lots of people talk about Geula, lots of people talk about Mashiach, but this, for some reason, just really resonated. And it was during this time period when I left the job, started with Kami Times, my non-for-profit, which Jesse here, comes to every day, and where the music. Oh, my brother Aaron, Moshe and Aaron, he was like, you're 3 months now on your own. You're doing music for everybody else. You're learning the repertoire of the people and the clients that you see. You haven't composed music in a while. Do you have some music you'd like to get out? So Baruch Hashem, my amazing brother said, I'm going to give you $5,000, and could you make an album? I said, I have 5 songs ready to go right now. So this music it just came out, I guess this energy attracted this, and I called my friend Hillel Kapnick up, and he came over to this room, and I said, let's record. I got these songs, and Moshe Neviecha, Kaylee, and Beta Solomon, Shlomo Gason's from Zusha, he's on Beta Solomon, and Incense, and the Geula Vision just aligned. It's just like, this is Geula Vision, help me break out of the constraints. I'm going to call this album Geula Vision, and I'm going to try to live it, and exemplify this, at least the part of it of not having these self-imposed limitations of success and where you can be and where you can't be, and what music is going to be fitting for this path. There were so many opinions of like, oh, will they like this music? Will this fit in here? I don't care. This is me.
It's like the soundtrack of your life.
Yeah, exactly. So
how
does it fit into Geula? I just want to tie it in. The collective Geula is, I heard from Rabbi Shmuel Brazil. He said, what's pshat? Shibane Besa Mikdash Bimhera via Menu. Okay? Shibane Besa Mikdash Bimhera via Menu. Don't read, may be your will that, that the Besa Mikdash be built in your days, but read it with your days, meaning with what you do, like with what you do, let the temple be built that way. And that deeply resonated. I was just like, this is Geula vision. Hashem needs us in our own, with our own contributions. He doesn't need another replica, and which goes with Reb Zusha and the idea of just authenticity and being yourself and coming into your power, but not being afraid of what you have to offer, because Hashem wants that. He wants that with your days, with what you're doing. May the temple be built.
Be Yameinu, wow.
May your portion, may your individual chelik be revealed, you know? Oh, like, this is my Torah. This is our Torah. This is what it's about, you know?
So Moshe, this is your first recording where it was your songs, your compositions?
Yeah, I mean, I've always written music, and even the Hashem's disciples, there were a lot of English songs, but this was like taking Pesukim and understanding the diktuk and saying the words and knowing what they mean, for me was a major milestone in my Yiddishkeit, to the point where I'm ready to convey a pasuk and teach it and talk about it and communicate it with these sounds accompanied by it, you know?
Okay, Moshe, thank you so much for sharing your world with us. Amazing, fascinating. We connected in so many ways, and I want to continue growing together, continue hearing your music.
And I want to visit you in Muncie. I'm like,
me too.
Yeah, together.
Where
yeah,
you go, you can bring me. Okay.
Yeah.
Next time you guys are here, please hit me up.
Like a little jam session. Mm-mm.
Oh wait, we wanted to ask Moshe to play something. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Of course. How can we miss that? Moshe, can you play something for us on whatever's on your mind?
And for our listeners who may not know what that is, what are you playing?
Okay, so this is a marimba. It's in the xylophone family.
What you're about to play is going to be the Chedusha Marimba.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry. Dad joke.
That's such a Tuvia joke. Yeah. Classic
so
Tuvia.
I'm going to play you a song that it will be, God willing, will be on the new album in the future. This is called Aharon Achicha. And it takes the pasuk, Rei Nasaticha Elohim Befaro. Aharon, Rei Nasaticha Elohim Befaro. Aharon Achicha Yihye Neviacha. Okay? How's it sound? All right?
Awesome.
Reina Saticha Elohim Befaro. Reina Saticha Elohim Befaro. Aharon Achicha Yehye Neviecha. Aharon Achicha Yehye Neviecha. Reina Saticha Elohim Befaro. Reina Saticha Elohim Befaro. Aharon Achicha Yehye Neviecha. Aharon Achicha Yehye Neviecha. Aharon Bechor Tamechu Me'adam Mizecha Umizecha. Aharon Bechor Tamechu yeah.